قد أفلح المؤمنون.
Did Imam al-Hassan have a speech defect? Imam al-Hassan, salamullah alayh, Abu al-Faraj al-Isfahani narrates in Maqatil al-Talibiyin, he says Imam al-Hassan had a fa'fa'a. Fa'fa'a is, in Arabic terms, is when someone, it's like, for example, the letter F, they stutter at it. It's like, right? Or, that's a fa'fa'a. Or some people say it means your tongue is heavy. So, for example, he would talk like this. The story goes, we're going to narrate the story and then we're going to respond to it. Abu al-Faraj narrates this in Maqatil al-Talibiyin. What does he say? He says, وكان في لسان الحسن بن علي سلام الله عليه ثقل كالفأفأة حدثني به محمد بن الحسين الأشناني قال حدثنا محمد بن إسماعيل الأحمسي قال حدثنا مفضل بن صالح عن جابر. It's either جابر بن عبد الله or جابر بن يزيد الجعفي, both of which are ثقة according to us. قال كانت في لسان الحسن رتة فقال سلمان الفارسي سلام الله عليه, like Imam al-Hassan's uncle. He says, when he said about Imam al-Hassan, أتته من قبل عمه موسى بن عمران. When Imam al-Hassan, when they noticed when he was a kid, he had that odd way of speaking, Salman al-Farisi said about him, he said he got it from his uncle Musa. Because Musa, salamullahi alayh, if you read his story in the Quran, Musa, when they brought him to Fir'aun is not an idiot. He says, how do I know this kid isn't the one from Bani Israel who's going to destroy my kingdom? So, what did he do? He brought the magicians. He says, I want you to identify if this child is going to be a threat to my kingdom. So it is narrated that what they did, they brought him a bowl of hot coals, and they brought him a bowl of emeralds. And so they said, if he is a prophet, if he is an abnormal child, he will take the emeralds. But if he is a normal child, he will take the coals, and he has nothing to worry about. So Musa salamullahi alayhi wanted to reach for the emeralds, but Jibra'il took his hand and he took it to the coal. And so what did he do? The story says he took it and he put it in his mouth and it burned his tongue. It gave him a defect in his tongue. So Musa salamullahi alayhi, it is said, and the reason why I'm saying it is said is because I have not looked into this tafsir. This is a popularly narrated story about Nabi Musa salamullahi alayhi. Because there's an ayah of the Quran in Surah Taha, Nabi Musa asks Allah, he says, وَحْلُلْ عُقْدَةً مِّن لِسَانِي يَفْقَهُ قَوْلِي. Make it, he says, Ya Allah, you're sending me as a prophet, but I have difficulty speaking. Fix my tongue, make my tongue easy for them to understand. This is one version, one tafsir. Allahu a'lam if it is true. Correct? But this is what that story with Salman is referring to. Is Salman is like, oh, al-Hassan got that from his uncle Musa, because Musa, the Anbiya, or Rasulullah would call the Anbiya his brothers. So they would be the uncles of the Imams alayhim salam. What is wrong with this story? There's a few things wrong with this story. Number one, you can't inherit something from your uncle, much less your spiritual uncle. You don't inherit something from your uncle, you inherit it from your father, from your grandfather. Even if we accept it, say, okay, sometimes someone can, when they say inherit it from your uncle, it means you got it from the grandfather, you have a similarity with your uncle. Musa's tongue defect was not inherited. He got it from an injury, according to that story we went over. That's firstly. Secondly, Allah cured Nabi Musa's tongue defect. Thirdly, or fourthly, I don't remember which one we're on now. Another issue. This story has a weak chain. It is another one of the ahad. This story is narrated via this one chain by al-Mufaddal bin Salih. Al-Mufaddal bin Salih is a kadhab. He's a notorious liar. And I'm going to show you something really interesting about al-Mufaddal bin Salih. Al-Mufaddal bin Salih, both the Sunnis and the Shia ulama of Rijal weakened him. Here is his link, if you want to check out his link on Hadith DB. And I'll actually show you guys something really interesting. If you go to his bio on Hadith DB, look what it says. Al-Mufaddal ibn Salih, Matruk al-Hadith. Matruk al-Hadith means no one accepted his reports. Jarh wa Ta'deel, what does he say? One of these scholars, Abu Ahmad ibn Adi al-Jirjani, أورد له حديث وقال أنكر ما رأيت له حديث الحسن ibn Ali. وسائر أرجو أن يكون مستقيما. He says, the worst thing I have seen him narrate is his story about al-Hassan ibn Ali. First of all, this man is accused of lying specifically about al-Hassan ibn Ali, salamullahi alayh. So should I take a story from him about Imam al-Hassan? Probably not. Point number one. Point number two, our scholars also weakened him. To quote one of the Sada's favorite books, Rijal ibn al-Ghada'iri. In Rijal ibn al-Ghada'iri, what does Ibn al-Ghada'iri say about him? He says, Al-Mufaddal ibn Salih al-Asadi, the Nakhas, the traitor, he says, and he narrates with his chain, he says, weak, a liar, he fabricates hadith. And he narrates with his chain from Muawiyah ibn al-Hakam. He said, I heard Abu Jamila, who is this man, Mufaddal ibn Salih, saying, I forged the epistle of Muawiyah to Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr. He says, I made up a story about Muawiyah's letter to Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr. And if we take a look at Sayyid al-Khu'i's book, Mu'jam Rijal al-Hadith, Sayyid al-Khu'i also notes, I believe it is Shaykh al-Najashi, who also said he is weak and he is a kadhab. So again, we have an ahad, a single chain of narration. There is no other chain that says Imam al-Hasan had this speech defect. And we see that in the chain is a man who is a liar, a fabricator. So can we, if we had to decide, is this story more or likely true or more or likely fake? It is more or likely fake. And this last point I'm going to give you is going to completely destroy it. Imam al-Hasan al-Mujtaba gave many speeches in his life, public speeches in front of multiple people. Imam al-Hasan gave multiple speeches. A man who gives multiple speeches, if he has a speech defect, are we going to get one or multiple people narrating this about him? We're going to get multiple. It makes more sense that multiple people would have noted this if it was true about Imam al-Hasan. Salamullahi alayh. Imam al-Hasan, to give you some examples of the speeches he gives. First of all, probably his first public speaking appearance. Abu Bakr was sitting on the minbar. Imam al-Hasan comes up to him, and what does he say to him? He says to him, get off of my father's pulpit. I love this story so much. Everyone narrates the one with Imam al-Hussein and Umar. They forget that Imam al-Hasan did it first. Imam al-Hasan did it as well. We have narrations about Imam al-Hussein doing it with Umar and Imam al-Hasan doing it with Abu Bakr. That's one. Two, Amir al-Mu'mineen, salamullahi alayh, when he's getting ready to go to war with Aisha and the Bughat of Basra, he needs someone to bring the Kufans to his side, to convince the Kufans to join his army. Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen, I forget who he sent first. I believe he sent Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr and another man, and it didn't work. They couldn't do it. They couldn't, refute Abu Musa al-Ash'ari. So who does Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen send? He sends Imam al-Hasan and Ammar ibn Yasir. Salamullahi alayhima. And Ammar ibn Yasir, I'll never forget, this is narrated in Bukhari. Imam al-Hasan stood on the minbar giving the khutbah, and Ammar was sitting below him. Ammar is one of the great Sahaba of Rasulullah. At that point, he was in his 90s, 90-year-old man. But that's Sayyid Shababi Ahl al-Jannah. That's an Imam, whether he stands or he sits. Imam al-Hasan gave a speech to the Kufans. If it weren't for Imam al-Hasan's speech, Imam Ali, you know how big his army would have been at the Battle of Jamal? Imam Ali's army would have been, you could barely even call it an army, it would have been a couple hundred people from Hijaz. Imam al-Hasan is the one who rallied the Kufans to Imam Ali's side. Did any of these Kufans note that he had a speaking defect? Nope. Imam al-Hasan, probably his most famous speech, is his eulogy for his father Amir al-Mu'mineen, salamullahi alayhi, where he tells the people of Kufa in the morning after Amir al-Mu'mineen had been buried, he says to them, last night a man left you, who no one from those who came before and no one from those who came after could match him. Whenever Rasulullah would send him, Jibra'il and Mikail, salamullahi alayhima, would fight on his right and his left until he returned with victory. He died on the same day that Nabi Isa salamullahi alayhi went into his ghaiba, and Yusha ibn Nun salamullahi alayhi died, the wasi of Nabi Musa. This speech is recorded by multiple sources. I gathered a bunch of them. Not a single one notes. Oh, by the way, Imam al-Hasan, while he was giving that speech, he had a speech defect. Imam al-Hasan, also, his speech when he rallies his men to war against Muawiyah, is a famous story. It's recorded in Ansab al-Ashraf, as well as Maqatil al-Talibin, as well as Sharh Nahj al-Balagha. He gives a speech calling the people of Kufa to war, and none of them answer. So Adi ibn Hatim al-Ta'i gets up and shames all of them. He says, all of you should be ashamed of yourself. You call yourselves Arab. He was the first person to join the army of Imam al-Hasan. Salamullahi alayhi. Awwala man askar is the phrase that is used. Imam al-Hasan is also recorded. This is the Siyar A'lam al-Nubala, as well as in Tarikh Medina Dimashq. What does he say to the Kufans? He says to them, Muawiyah has called you to a matter in which there is no sharaf or karama. There is no honor in this matter of submitting to Muawiyah without a fight. But the choice is yours. If you want, we can fight him. And if you want, we can make peace with him. So what do they say to him? Al-Baqiyya, Al-Baqiyya, Ibn Rasulullah. We want to, Al-Baqiyya means we want to remain. We want to survive. We want to live for another day. We don't want to fight. Give you another speech of Imam al-Hassan. Imam al-Hassan, salamullah alayhi, Muawiyah, when he entered Kufa, said to him, Hassan, get up and give a khutbah. Because he was hoping Imam al-Hassan would mess up, he would embarrass himself. What did Imam al-Hassan say? He got up on the khutbah, on the minbar, and he gave a khutbah. It's one of my favorite khutbahs of Imam al-Hassan. He says to them, a Khalifa is one who works by the Quran and the Sunnah. A Khalifa is not one who uses jawr, who uses oppression. The one who uses oppression, he's not a Khalifa. What is he? He's a Malik. All he has is mulk. And mulk comes and goes. And Imam al-Hassan looked at Muawiyah and he recited the verse of the Quran. He says, and I hope it will be a fitna for you for a time. He says, you think I've given you Khilafah? I am the Khalifa of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. You are just a king. You're just like Fir'aun. You're just like Nimrud. And this mulk is only going to be a fitna for you. These are the speeches of Imam al-Hassan. There are books written. I forget the name of the book. There's a book written. It's just the speeches of Imam al-Hassan. And we'll mention one more little one. It's not a speech. Imam al-Hassan, before leaving Kufa and going back to Medina, Muawiyah and Amr ibn al-As and Mughira ibn Shu'bah and Walid ibn Uqba and, the supervillain convention, as I call them, they gathered and they all began to mock Imam al-Hassan. And I remember Amr ibn al-As said to Imam al-Hassan, he said, because your father killed so many of us, Quraysh, he made you the ahmaq of his qawm. He made you the fool among your tribe. Imam al-Hassan, you know what he does? He wiped the floor with every single one of them. I could do a whole lecture on that discussion between Imam al-Hassan and between Muawiyah and his henchmen. He says to Muawiyah, he says to him, do you even know in whose bed you were born? Do you even know in whose bed you were born? Someone like you and these people, these sons of haram, these sons of idol worshippers, to speak to me this way? Imam al-Hassan al-Mujtaba, salamullah alayh, that is the best way to summarize his life. Nobility, excellence, and generosity. And I've done a khutbah on his life, inshallah. Those of you who want can go back to it. And again, we listed some of the sources that we cited. But we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Ya Allah, bihaq Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, farraj anna, Ya Allah. Ya Allah, bihaq al-Hasan ibn Ali, il'an man zalam al-Hasan ibn Ali. Ya Allah, bihaq Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad, punish those who have made it difficult for us to do ziyarah of Imam al-Hasan, salamullahi alayh. Ya Allah, bihaq Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad, grant us the honor of demanding justice with his nephew, with the descendant of Imam al-Hussein, with Imam Sahib al-Amr, who will demand justice for his uncle, who was prevented from being buried next to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. Ya Allah, grant us ziyarah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi, and the honor of doing hajj of your sacred house in this year and in every year. Wa sallallahu ala Muhammadin wa alihi at-tayyibin at-tahirin. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa alihi.